So a question I got this week that I also get a lot. So I decided it was time to go ahead and make a video on this one. And the underlying question that I normally get is, hey Mark, what books would you recommend for me to learn with to help in being able to do some of the stuff you do? Amplifier repair, maybe builds, understanding electronics, understanding tube gear, that type of thing. And so I just kind of went around the house and rounded up some stuff laying around. I've got a pretty good, what I would call audio and electronics book collection, but thought I'd walk you through some books and kind of the pros and cons and merits of each. First and foremost, if you're going to be doing tube audio stuff of any sort, you need one of these. This one's actually one reprinted by Antique Electronic Supply. It is release candidate 30 here, so that's the latest version of this book. It's a brand new one. I will tell you, I think the reprint has a little bit of fuzziness to it on some of the pictures and graphs and whatnot, but it's not bad. I use an original of this over with my tube tester, but not only does it have all the tubes in it and all the specs about all the tubes, it also has a whole section in it on amplifier kind of design and theory and practice and whatnot. And there's actually some pretty darn good circuits in here. Matter of fact, there's a well-known preamp out in the industry that was made for years, and the circuit came right out of this book, believe it or not. So let me set that one aside. Then there's the infamous Morgan Jones Valve Amplifiers book. I think this is the fourth edition. Third edition would still be a good book. He made just a few updates in this one. Really, really good book. Might need a little bit of background. I don't know if you'd never had any formal math or physics background at all, whether you'd get lost in this one maybe a little bit. But if you had some basic, maybe algebra kind of stuff, you should be able to follow this one along. Top-notch book in the industry. If you were just going to get one of a couple books, this would definitely be on that list. Then Morgan Jones has another one called Building Valve Amplifiers, and so it's more about the physical aspects, how to turn your transformers to keep from interfering with each other, how far apart to put your tubes, how to run your ground wires. Really good practical experience kind of book. It is written in the UK, so some of us in the US, you have to kind of translate some of it, not language-wise, but circuit-wise and whatnot. There's always the old Saga of the Vacuum Tube book. This is more of a history book. A lot of historical pictures in here. Shows you about a lot of the evolution of the tube, how it was designed, how it evolved and whatnot. So it's more of a history book than a how-to book, but you can pick these up pretty cheap. It's a really good book. Somewhere along the way, I picked this one up. It's can't even pronounce. Rainier Linde, Build Your Own Valve Amplifier. It's a really good book. Pretty good practical stuff in this book. Let's see, this one's by Nick Beer. I got it along the way. It's how to service your own audio and hi-fi equipment. It gets into a lot of like CD players and how to fix them. More solid state-ish than tube-based, but still a good book nonetheless. There's the Tab Guide to Vacuum Tube Audio. You see where I'm at in the book. I didn't even make it through it. It's pretty good. Not my favorite book though. But if you had finished a lot of the other books and wanted another one, this one might be another one to add to your collection. This one's a pretty rare book by Melanie Horowitz. It is Troubleshooting High Fidelity Amplifiers, and it is superb. Gets into some real practical stuff, how to use a voltmeter, scope and whatnot to do troubleshooting in high fidelity amplifiers. If you could find one of these, I would definitely get your hands on one. This is one here, Tubes and Circuits, Bruce Rosenblit. Pretty good book, honestly. Didn't go very deep, but just a good read. I would recommend that one to somebody. This is an old GE book. I'm not even sure what year this one might have came out. Let me see if I can find it here. Oh, I'm not going to find it. At any rate, covers similar to the RCA manual, a lot of the tubes and whatnot, but it's also got some practical experience stuff here in the back of the book. So another good book to have on your shelf. Now, let's see. Oh, man, this right here. The ARRL Handbook, as I would call it. Doesn't matter whether you get one from 1988 or one from 1978 or 2014. I've got these for almost every year. I pick them up every year. They used to be about 15 bucks. Now they got really expensive, like 40, 50 bucks. But even though it's designed, the book was originally written around RF and radio, ham radio stuff, the front part of the book, usually about this much of it, is practical stuff, theory, resistors, capacitors, you know, all about them, when to pick a 1/4 watt resistor versus a 1/2 watt resistor, some really practical stuff. So you can pick these up cheap. Don't get wrapped around what year it is. The year is just different projects that they add into the book. A lot of the stuff at the beginning is the same. I do think the ones from the 80s and 90s, because they still have some vacuum tube stuff in them, if you're a tube guy, would be a good route to go. This is a book, another pretty rare one, Cameron's Servicing Sound Equipment. And this book goes way back. It's really all about motion picture stuff. So there's a lot in here on old Western Electric amplifiers, old RCA amplifiers. So if you're using any of these old, working on any of these old amplifiers that came out of maybe a cinema or a PA system or something, this is a great book to have for that purpose. I think these are about 200 bucks when you find one, though. They're not cheap. And some of these older books, the reason they're so expensive is you can't find PDF versions of them online. This is the creme de la creme, holy grail of audio books in a lot of people's opinion. It is the 4th edition RCA Radio Designer's Handbook. This thing goes deep. It gets into all kinds of circuits in here, but there's a whole big section on kind of audio amplifier design, theory, practice, and whatnot. I will tell you, this one, without some mathematics background, you'll get over your head really quickly. But if you got a good basis, this one's an amazing book. They're getting kind of expensive. They used to not be bad. They used to be a $50 book. Now they're getting on up there a little bit. This is a tougher one to find. The Audio Encyclopedia by Howard Tremaine. Just an amazing wealth of knowledge. This, if I only could buy 2 or 3 books, that RCA handbook would be one of them. This would be one of them. Top-notch book. This book originally sold, looks like 40 bucks. I just can't even begin to tell you about all the circuits this thing covers and the theory and applied nature of it. Pretty in-depth book. So somebody like myself, I get a lot out of a book like this. This book just came out here. I saw the author of this posted online in a Facebook group here a week or 2 ago and said, hey, I've written a new book on the design of an integrated push-pull amplifier made easy. It's a fairly thin read. I ordered it off, it was $19.95, I think. I ordered it, showed up off Amazon 2 days later, and I basically read it over the last week. And I think it's an amazing book for somebody to get their head around the basics of a push-pull amplifier. You do need to know some basics, some Ohm's law, frequency formulas. So if you got some of the basic electronics math out of the way, this would make a great book for you to pick up, and it's current, right? Then there's Merlin Blinkow. This guy, he runs the Valve Wizard website. Amazing stuff. This one is designing power tubes for tube amplifiers. I learned so much from this book. I know a lot about power supplies. I've been working on them for 30 years. This book really brought some things home for me. So even if you think you know your stuff, I would highly recommend this one. And this one is kind of a holy grail. I've been using this book in the design of my preamplifier that I've been working on for about a year. The guy's got some really good practical. he has a really good way of kind of taking you through the deep stuff without going so deep, if that's a good way to explain it. So you can get these off the Valve Wizard's website. The other books that I've got a lot of, oh yeah, I can't do without this, and I've got, matter of fact, I've got two versions of it. This is the Mullard circuit book, and these are the same book, just made different points in time. It says here on the back of this is a reprint of the original 1959 book published by Mullard, and this is the actual 1959 book, although they're not printed in 59. This is what it would have looked like in 59, but it just goes through all of classic circuit design. It goes through circuit layout, the chassis. It's even got, you know, how to drill and lay out your chassis designs, whatnot. And then it's got the classic Mullard circuits in here, about a dozen good amplifier circuits. So highly recommend that. This is a pretty good one, vacuum tube, guitar and bass amplifier theory. It's Tino Zatola. I picked it up somewhere along the way. I like it a lot. Then I've got the whole series of these books. I keep them in these little binders like this. These are the Vacuum Tube Valley. Now these you can find online and download them. But you know, if you got some basic knowledge, this was a series that was out in the 90s. The guys at Vacuum Tube Valley were putting these out. A wealth of knowledge. I read these things over and over and over, and every time I think I've mastered everything in them or understood everything in them, I learn another little nuance somewhere along the way. Similarly, in the 90s, there was a group of books here, one of them out here, called Sound Practices. Again, excellent applied theory, excellent modifications, tweaks. I love the old advertisements in here for stuff. Just amazing books. I highly recommend the Sound Practices. I think these can be not just downloaded for free like the Vacuum Tube Valley ones, but I think you can pick these up. You can buy the Sound Practices CD. Yeah. Oh, this is pretty cool here. Check it out. This is an ad from, looks like, what year would this have been? I don't know, 90s. Any rate, it was for the first reissue of the Western Electric 300Bs, which are long gone now, and now there's another reissue of the 300Bs being done. And then let me see here if I can dig just a little deeper. What else do we have here? Oh yeah, I can't forget about the Glass Audio series. There's a whole pile of those. I got probably about 6 or 7 things like this. I've got the whole series of Sound Practices, Vacuum Tube Audio, and the Vacuum Tube Valley books. But there again, just a wealth of knowledge. Love the old ads. You know, can't go wrong with these books. If you can get these. I'm not sure if these are available online for download or not. I'm a physical book kind of guy. I do read a lot on my iPad, but you know, I'll grab a book like this, I'll throw it in my book bag the next time I'm going to be on an airplane, or throw 2 or 3 of them in there, and I'll read them while I'm on an airplane, and I'll bring them back and put them in the shelf and grab the next ones next time out. So hopefully that's a good little sampling of books that you could round up on your own, or some of them, and get started in this kind of maybe servicing, repairing, you know, hi-fi equipment, vacuum tube stuff, solid state amplifiers, turntables, electronics, whatnot. I think this is a good set of materials to get you going. So hope that answered your questions you guys have been asking me over and over. And if you got more, just post them below. I'll try to respond to them. Thanks for watching, everybody.